Hi, I'm Joe Chupesky, the System Plan Coordinator for the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission, the GMRPTC. I'm going to walk you through the application for legacy funding for the GMRPTC. You can also contact me through my email, which is on the website if you have any questions. We strongly encourage you to contact me if you intend to submit an application so that we can do our best to help you be successful. And then after you submit your application, please contact me to schedule your site visit, which will take place in late August or early September. Let's begin, shall we? First of all, we want to talk about preparation, how to prepare for putting together your application. First, we want you to go to our website, gmrptcommission.org, which you should be familiar with. Lots of great information there. What we want to focus on today is the application tab up here on the menu bar. Click on that. It will take you to this page, which you are probably familiar with if you've completed funding applications previously or completed your facility's master plan. Using this button, the Apply Here for Regional Designation button. That's where you go for everything related to our data management system. You will also see here our application toolbox. The toolbox has a lot of great information. You can also find it as a drop down under the Applications tab. We just want to note as well that now the designation application is open, and look on the website for the deadline for applications, typically at the end of July or very early August. There are a few things we want you to know before you begin your application. One is that only regionally designated facilities are eligible to apply for funding. Those are facilities that have been designated by the GMRPTC. A city or county in Greater Minnesota must be the applicant, whether you own the facility or a joint partner in the designation. A resolution from the county board or city council for the agency that is applying for funding is required, so give yourself time to make sure you get that passed. Resolutions or confirmation letters from all match funding sources are required. This year you will also have to submit a site plan that meets specifications with the application, as well as a complete budget. And as I mentioned, we will conduct a site visit of your application during the review process. So let's go to the application toolbox. You can see here there's a lot of great information. On the right side of the screen under funding applications are some key documents for you to take a look at. One of the most important ones for you is the funding criteria and guidelines. Click on that, and up will come the criteria and guidelines. Make sure that you have the most recently updated edition, which is located at that button. The Commission is likely to make some changes to this annually as we find ways to help applicants be successful not only with their applications, but with their projects as well, set you up for success. Going through this may require a little bit more or different information up front depending on what your particular project is, but all this information we request should help you out if your project is funded. Going through the guidelines, take a look at a couple of different pieces. One on page 2 is the application requirements, which are fulfilled by completing your online application. We do have a list of the required attachments as well. On the bottom of page 3 are the scoring criteria so that you know exactly where we are giving points for what pieces of the application. Could earn up to 100 points total. And then we begin down below the project eligibility guidelines on the bottom of page 4. It's important to take a look through there and figure out what parts and pieces of your project are eligible for funding, either as a park or as a trail, and which parts are not. So take a look at that and become familiar with that system. All right. What else can we take a look at in the toolbox? We do have an application tutorial that is a sort of a hard copy version of this online tutorial. We also have here the funding application contents. What this provides is all of the information that is in the application portal in a hard copy printout so that you can take a look at the entire thing before you even start the online process and understand what items are needed with the instructions located in brackets. So make good use of that if it's possible for you. All right. There are a couple of other items here on the toolbox. One, most of the rest of it has to do with the budget spreadsheet, which includes the template, which is a blank version of the spreadsheet, a sample for you to look at, as well as a tutorial how to use that template. And then, of course, the funding sample resolution. This is the template you'll need for your board or council as they go about submitting the application with that official resolution. All right. Now let's move back to the application and click Apply here so we can begin. First thing over here is an overview. Read through that if you haven't before, but then click Get Started. And this will take you to the login page. You should already have a login based on your email and your password. If you do not remember your password, there is a reset password function. And if you do not remember which email, or if it was a previous staff person that may have worked on this, get in touch with me and we'll help to make sure that your email is the one that is associated with that particular facility. There's only ever one email that's associated with any facility for designation applications, master plans, and funding application. Do not create a new account at this point unless we discuss it first. All right, let's log into the system. And here we have the dashboard. This shows you all of the facilities. I just have one test facility in here right now. But if you have, say, one trail and one park, or a number of different facilities, each one of them will be listed here with the application ID number, starting with the 2 digits of the year that the application was started, and then ending with a D for designation, and then the name of the facility. You do not want to click New Application here. That will start a new designation application, not a funding application. So for this, we're going to apply for funding for Park P. Let's click on the application ID number and get started. You can see here that here's a list of all the applications that have been started for this facility. The designation application, the master plans, and all the previous funding applications. You could start a new funding application by clicking this button here. This is the time to start it. Once you have started it, however, as I have here, you will see that it is already listed in your menu. So I've already started one. It's 19-001F. That number is generated automatically. So I will just click on this to start the funding application. You can see that there are 4 tabs across the top: the general, the funding, the attachments, and the submit tabs. And we'll go through all of those different pieces here in order. All right. So, starting on the general tab, you'll see that there are a number of different items right at the top here above this line, starting with the Parker Trail ID, the funding application ID, the Parker Trail name, and the district that it's in. All of those should be auto-filling from your master plan. What will not be included is the number of existing acres or miles for your particular facility. So take the time to fill out if you've got currently a 320 acre park, include that here. Maybe your application is to add another 40 acres onto that with a land purchase. But just put in what is existing for that park or trail currently. All right. Below that, you will want to start a project name. We're looking for something that is fairly descriptive, such as, putting down campground completion or something like that. Make sure it is descriptive for your particular project. And then we want to show you one additional feature, actually a couple of different features that will help you as you go through this. If you remember back on the is the portal contents, which I showed you earlier. That was in the toolbox. There's a lot of information there that tells you what you should be trying to complete or what information to include for each of these items. That information is also included with this little I button that is located next to each of the different items on the application. Simply hover your cursor over that item and you will have a pop-up box that you can read and will show you what is very important information for you. Hover your cursor, get the information, please use that information. So that's the same information that was in the toolbox. Hopefully you've gone through the toolbox at this point and understand what is needed. So at this point, you've got the basic information down, the name of the project. Here you want to have the project description. And this is the key part where you're going to tell what it is that you want to complete with your project. So if it's to redevelop a campground, add a new shower house, bathhouse, and you're also going to complete a loop trail around part of the campground over to a day use area. Explain explicitly what it is that you're going to accomplish. This is where you're going to be telling us as the reviewers what do you want to accomplish and where we start figuring out how well you're doing against the criteria. So make sure you're very clear and hopefully concise as to what your project is going to be about. The rest of this page is primarily about your basic contact information. What is the applicant organization that is applying? As we mentioned, it has to be a city or county in Greater Minnesota. We do have a couple of items that you should be attaching here. One is a map. You can click on this blue button that shows you what the requirements are for a map that shows the basic site as well as the surrounding neighborhood, so we can have some context for the park itself. And then we're also requiring a site plan for your facility, for your project. So you will click on this button and up will come some general guidelines as to what we're looking for the level of detail, which is not a design document, it's not construction documents, but it's enough information in a site plan that we can make good judgments that first the design that you have meets whatever standards are necessary for this type of project, but also that that the budget that you put in place is going to be adequate for what you want to accomplish. So that site plan is very important to us. We also want to point out a new little feature here. You can see here a little icon that's appearing next to many of the application items. It looks like a double box. What that is now a link to the master plan. There's another tutorial that is available for you to take a look at that. But we are encouraging people to make use of that link to the master plan. It's not required, but what it'll do is help you to connect a particular item on the funding application with a particular part of the master plan to help it tell the bigger picture story of how this project fits into your overall vision. See this separate training tutorial for this master plan linkages. Do not use these links to supplant detailed project information in the application. The master plan should support your project, but we expect that there is more detail in your project than in the master plan. All right. So you've got those attachments done. Maybe you've identified someplace in your master plan that you want to link to. That's great. Not required, but we do want you to complete, of course, all of the local contact information and then hit save to make sure it is saved, and you will continue on to the funding tab. All right, let's take a look at the funding tab. The information required in the description section helps us to understand the size and scope of the project. The development type, which is a drop-down menu, where you can list whether it's a development or restoration or both. Could also be a connecting people to the outdoors type of project. We look for the acres of land or miles of trail to be acquired, the type of acquisition to be undertaken, whether it is fee title or possibly a long-term lease situation or easement. We want to know what type of facilities will be developed, whether they're restored or improved, and if there will be a connecting people to the outdoors type of programming component to your project. For any boxes throughout the application that aren't relevant to your project, please put in NA or not applicable in the box. This will help you to make sure that you've at least considered the item and aren't missing anything when you submit. That's our recommendation to you. Under project outcomes, tell us what the project will accomplish from a user perspective. We want to know not only what facilities will be built or improved, for instance, the number of campgrounds, the feet of beach, etc., but we want to know who it is going to impact and how. Make sure you speak to who will be coming to your new features and from where, and what will be the perceived quality of the facility compared to others in the region in particular. How does this project create a complete experience for users? How will you know if this project is successful? Very important to be thinking about that. Next, select which of the 4 legacy pillars your project supports. Read the details in the I button as to what each of those means, or learn more in the Parks and Trails Legacy Plan, which is also linked here in the blue text. Choose only those pillars that are actually supported by this particular project. More is not necessarily better. Quality definitely counts. And tell us why in the box labeled connection to pillars, why you think that pillar is supported by this particular project. All right. So let's take a look at the connection to the pillars. Connection to a regionally substantial component of the master plan. This is one item that if there's any place in this application where you write text that explains the connection to the master plan, you should also include this linkage to the master plan. Use this linkage to show exactly where in the master plan you talk about this project, either as its impact or how it fits into the larger scheme of creating a regional park or trail. So this is a very important box, so be sure to spend a lot of time expressing exactly how this particular project lends itself to the regional level of service that your park or trail provides. Next is project readiness. You will have an opportunity to talk about who is the lead for the particular project, what does the implementation timeline look like, the availability for public use. All of those things are important for us here because what they do is they give us ideas of how ready you are to actually have a successful project if we do give you funding. Such as the implementation timeline. Note that if you are selected, you will want to begin your background environmental work in the spring, but you can't begin any officially funded project work until your grant contract with the state is completed. That could be as early as July 1, but realistically could be in the fall. Take the construction seasons into consideration when also thinking about your implementation timeline. Availability for public use. This is state funding, remember, legacy is state tax dollars. There are requirements for public access to the facility. Be sure to read the guidelines and tell us about your use guidelines and requirements for the facility, including any user fees. And the next tab down is the design standards. Tell us about the design standards that will be used in the final project design and construction, and the professional responsible for that design, as well as any project oversight. Be sure you understand your obligations according to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Links are provided for your information, such as a statement of accessibility here. It gives you an idea of what we're looking for. And contact us with any questions if you can. Now we're going to start with the project cost breakdown. What is it you're trying to achieve, and how much are the various components going to cost us? This is where you give us the basics of the budget. How much are you asking for? Where's the match coming from? What are the non-eligible items, and how big is the project total? So give us the project cost breakdown here. What you want to do with this section is sort of break down all the different components with an explanation of how it contributes to the user experience and the development of this entire project as a whole. Sort of this is the narrative that supports each of the project items. And then we'll move into the funding request breakdown, such as the grant funding request. Please note a couple of things. Please use whole basic number currency formats, no decimals. The local match, there's been some confusion about this in the past. The local match means any funds developed by the applicant agency that aren't legacy. It could include local donations, it could include local government sources, or even federal sources. All of those dollars must be accounted for, affirmed, and documented. Pledges or pending applications for funding do not count. A letter of support or commitment for each source must be attached. Remember, you can't match state legacy dollars with other state dollars, and local in-kind contributions of labor, materials, and so forth do not count. Only cash contributions can be used. You must also consider non-eligible project items. Those items must be accounted for, and if you remember, going back to our funding guidelines and criteria, we list out what the various items are that are eligible and ineligible for funding. So take a look at those, include them, but there's specific location here for non-eligible, local match, and descriptions of those items. So down here, the system will total up your total funding, percentage of local match, and you will include your completion time frame. Make sure that those numbers add up correctly, and then you can attach your funding resolutions here. This is where you will add, say you've got a local source and a county source for local funding. Include those resolutions from those agencies, particularly your county board or city council, whichever is your primary applicant here. So we have that resolution on file. All right. Next, we will go to the budget worksheet. There is a downloadable budget template that is located right here. It is also included in your application toolbox. So feel free to use that, or you must use that actually as the starting point for your complete budget. It will include all the information. It's fairly well tabbed. There's even little red tabs you can note in the corner of some of the cells that helps to explain what information we're looking for in some of those areas. So work through that budget spreadsheet and be sure to upload that once you have it completed and the numbers work out for you. There's also a place here for you to attach your appraisal. If you're looking for land acquisition or property acquisition through an easement, fee title, or however, you need to include that official state appraisal. That is what we will be basing your dollar reimbursement for. There are certain rules that we must follow because this is state dollars regarding purchase of property. So that appraisal must be a certain qualified type of appraisal. Contact us or your DNR rep if you have any questions about that. And then, of course, you can see some other notes that we have down here for you that will help you to think through what needs to be done for your project if you are funded, so that you can be fully prepared and have all the proper pieces in place. All right. So then we completed that section. Let us go down and save and continue. We're now into the attachments tab. So for the attachments tab, you've attached a number of documents throughout the application, including descriptions, resolutions, maps, site plans, and more. You've even had a chance to link your application to relevant components of the master plan. This tab is your chance to complete the story with additional relevant applications. Most helpful are pictures of the site or samples of the design you want to build. Be sure to label your pictures. You may also have letters of support from various local entities or new data that shows just how many people are using your trail or your campground. If it helps you to tell the story and build your score, please do include it here. All right, once you've completed that, you've gone through, you've looked back at your entire application, you've had somebody else take a look at it, then is your chance to go through and hit submit. A couple of features here under the submit tab. We've got the deadline listed. A note to make sure to review that all your information is accurate and complete. And once the application is submitted, it cannot be revised. Please be sure to note that. We don't want any phone calls from cranky applicants, because that just makes for cranky coordinators. And then if you want to have somebody else take a look at it, or you just prefer to take a look at the application in print, you can generate a PDF by using this button, which will pull up a complete version of your application. Everything will be filled in here that you can print off or save and send to somebody else to help you do any proofing. And then once your application is completed and all of the tabs are filled in, all the different boxes are filled, this submit funding application button will allow you to hit send or submit. So that will be the important part for that. Once you're done, be sure to contact me. We will set up your site visit, and we wish you luck. Take care.